Good evening, everybody. I have 6 p.m., and we are going to now start by calling the City Council meeting of January 26, 2026 to order. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All council members are present with the exception of Council Member Anthony Young. Is he online?
Mayor Walters?
Okay. Ms. Moulton.
Oh, I was going to move to excuse Mr. Young from tonight's meeting.
If there's no objection, we will consider him excused. All right, thank you. Okay, our first order of real business this evening is to recognize Emily Shue for her years of service to the City of Anacortes. 26 years of service to the City of Anacortes. Emily currently serves us as our Administrative Services Director, but she began her career with the city in 2000 as Human Resources Administrator. She later became Human Resources Director, and then Mayor Geer appointed her Administrative Services Director in 2014. Through her tenure in HR, Emily led major efforts to modernize our personnel policies, improve employee benefits, risk management programs, and then also support legal and court programs and operations. She helped guide the development and expansion of our municipal fiber internet system, probably maybe her most notable achievement. And throughout her career, Emily played a pivotal role in just generally strengthening city operations, advancing employee programs, managing legal and administrative functions, and supporting complex initiatives across multiple domains, HR and risk management, IT and fiber, public defense, and courts. Emily goes on now to serve as Director of Member Pooling Programs for the Association of Washington Cities, where she will oversee the Employee Benefit Trust, Risk Management Service Agency, Workers' Compensation Retro Program, and the Drug and Alcohol Consortium. Emily's contributions here have had a lasting and significant impact on the City of Anacortes. She will be missed, and as you might have seen, we have spent the last several weeks preparing for her departure and adapting to life without Emily. There are a couple of people here who would like to say a few words. I would like to begin by asking Emily to come up to the podium for a presentation of a very nice, yes, thank you, a very nice bouquet of flowers. Now, Emily is usually the one who takes the photos at these events, and it occurs to me that we didn't prepare for that. Thank you.
Emily, this is from staff and city leadership, just as a thank you for all your many years of service. You've been a valuable colleague, and you're definitely going to be missed by all of us at the city, so thank you.
Now you can go ahead and set those down, but we're going to need you back at the podium here in a moment. Our former, once and future fiber manager, Jim Lemberg, is here to present you with a special gift from the fiber department.
Emily, the fiber department, in my absence, put together this beautiful, I'm not sure what you call this, plaque, in recognition of Emily Shue, Director, for your 26 years of dedication to municipal excellence and collaboration. Your leadership in Anacortes set a standard that will benefit communities everywhere. January 18th of 2000 through January 27th of 2026. Thank you so much for your leadership, and if I might personally say, thank you for your friendship.
At this point, you can go ahead and sit down if you would like. Thank you. At this point, I would like to invite any former mayors in the audience to approach the podium. And we did away with the button on the microphone, so you can just speak directly into it. No.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great, thank you. Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight to honor Emily Shue. 26 years, she has served under 4 mayors. Now, granted, the last one, 15 minutes, but she still gets to count 4 mayors. So as I reflected tonight on Emily's contribution to the city, and you going on to serve all of Washington and all the cities, I reflected on how important the city staff is. You know, we as elected, we come in, we're there to serve the community, we're there to set policy, we're there to set budget, we're there to have a vision. But the city staff are the ones that make it happen year after year, no matter who is on this dais. And Emily has endured 26 years of making sure that happened for all of us. And I made a list of every department, and I'm not going to go through that now because I'm going to, because I think it's important we as citizens remember everyone's contribution, and then I'm going to circle back to your incredible, special, overarching contributions. So we have public safety and our courts, and they protect us, police and fire, and they're there when we're the most vulnerable. And it's not the electeds, it's the city staff that are doing that. Public Works provides our infrastructure, water, sewer, and streets. Our planning department is building for our future and protecting our environment. Our legal, our finance, and our IT department, they make sure all the laws in the city are followed. All fiduciary responsibilities as far as finance are protected. IT is taking care of our technology and cybersecurity that is so important in today's world. HR, and thank you for the foundation of that, Emily, providing a solid workforce that support all the services and all the employees and make sure they have the resources to take care of all of us citizens. And fiber, a new department that Emily led, is providing internet connectivity for every citizen, whether it's from healthcare to education to families to individuals, and it's city-owned. We own the fiber. And under Emily's leadership, under council's direction, we're there. I don't remember, what's our take rate right now? How much? 60? We have 60% take rate in the community. That is amazing, Emily. And then our cultural and natural resources are protected by our Parks Department, our Recreation Department, our library, and our museum. It's incredible. So city staff, we need to remember them every day. And they're here year after year, and they're our experts. So Emily is kind of the expert of the experts. She, as Mayor Walters mentioned, she's worked for us for 26 years, and she is the most dedicated municipal person I think I've ever met. And I'll give you one example. It's urban legend, but in her first or second year here, she was put on bed rest. She was in her first pregnancy, I think it was about 25 years ago. And, you know, normally you're put on bed rest, you could just go home and lay down. Well, she went home and she laid down and she built the foundation for our human resource policies and compensation packages that we have today. That did not exist before Emily took that on. And that's just like a little snippet into the way Emily works and her dedication to our citizens. And then I want to share a personal story. You know, as I said, I was mayor for 8 years. I came in here, I was excited to serve this community, to represent the citizens, to have a vision, and I had all these amazing ideas, but I had not a clue about truly what it takes to run municipal government. And Emily was my steady guide. She said, "Oh, Mayor, we need to do this. Are you aware of that?" And I credit you, Emily, for my success as mayor. Your guidance and your institutional knowledge, I don't think could be surpassed by anyone in the city of Anacortes. And your work has provided quality of life for all of our citizens, the foundational work you've done. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. The Association of Washington Cities and all cities of Washington State are lucky to get you. And don't be a stranger. Come and visit us. Stay close. And I have just a little parting gift for you, a little piece of local art, and my personal thank you. And this piece of art is done by Jill McDougall. It's a collage that she made representing Anacortes that I thought would look lovely on your home office. You're welcome. Yes, that's what I was hoping.
Thank you, former Mayor Gear. Thank you again to Ms. Shu. I think that we all really do appreciate the work that you have done. I certainly appreciate the work that you have done in the last several weeks to download as much information as you can to me, and my biggest regret is that I won't have that benefit over the next 4 years. If you haven't checked it out yet, there's a very nice profile of Emily in the Anacortes American. I recommend that you read it. All right, one more round of applause, please. And for city employees, we have a little get-together at the depot tomorrow afternoon, so don't miss out on that. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to our next set of announcements. First of all, Arts Commission. I have reappointed the following 2 people to the Arts Commission for 3-year terms that end in 2028, Zachary Wright and Cammie Bratton. Those appointments don't require confirmation, so they're effective today. Next slide, please. Also, I have appointed Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Christine Cleland McGrath to the North Star Housing Task Force. I sat on that task force for the last couple of years, and I expect Councilmember Cleland McGrath will do a great job there, especially with her housing background and her service on the Family Center Board. I want to remind the audience and the public that we are still accepting applications for our City Council Ward 1 vacancy. If you are a resident of Ward 1 and have been for at least a year, you can apply by noon on February 3rd. And the rather lengthy web address there is the location where you can get the application, but you can find that posted on the front page of the city website. So if you are interested in that, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us for more information, or to city staff, or visit the website for the application forms. Noon on February 3rd. Last Wednesday, we had a Downtown Streetscapes open house. It was very well attended. There was a lot of energy. There were a lot of good ideas. Really appreciate those of you in the audience or at home who were able to attend that. We are very supportive of our downtown and hopeful that that process will yield some ideas that we can implement near term. And now is a great time to hear from the Finance Committee, which I think is the only committee that has met in the last week. Who's going to take that report?
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met today, and so far it's Councilmember Cleland McGrath and me, and it will also be the Ward 1 appointee when we have that person on council. And we met with Finance Director Steve Hoagland and Finance Manager Rhonda Peck, and we got a preview of tonight's presentation. And Ms. Cleland McGrath and I had some questions that we thought other people might have as far as a way to we were a little bit confused about a couple of line items, so asked that those be clarified a bit for us and potentially others. And so we'll have all the details on that shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think we all, staff and department heads, appreciate that feedback when presentations come to council committees. Are there any other announcements or committee reports?
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Fantini.
Yes, I just wanted to report back from Olympia. Ms. Shu and I were down there for City Action Days this year. That's an opportunity where AWC provides for all of the local representatives to go down and meet with their various legislators to try to lobby on behalf of our legislative priorities. If you haven't gone down before, I think it's pretty amazing. We actually had the governor kick off an address to all of us. Two items of note from that address were, one, I was happy to hear that instead of just assuming a 4.5% revenue growth every year, that we're now actually budgeting at the state to what our actual revenue growth will be. So that's kind of a nice thing. He also did shout out specifically Skagit County's collaborative response for a lot of our first responders to the flooding that happened. So I thought that was very nice to be recognized as well. All of our legislators did give us a lot of time to meet with them, so we met with Senator Lovelit, Senator Mazzal, Representative Lekanoff, Representative Rammel, and Representative Paul. And they all expressed various levels of thought, not a great deal of optimism, specifically around our transportation budget request of $500,000 for commercial. There's a very tight transportation budget this year, but the governor is hoping to do a very large bond next year that will provide a lot more opportunities for funding. So if that does happen and we don't get our request this year, we might reconsider changing our request and asking for a little more next year. We also, did talk about the event center, and there did seem to be some optimism around getting that $500,000 for the event center. So that is very exciting as that project continues to progress. The other thing that we talked about, there are a couple bills right now, House Bill 2163 and Senate Bill 5913, which are both having to do with the indigent defense. Both of these bills clarify existing law to definitively provide rules on the public defender caseload standards that are set by the state Supreme Court. And what we're hoping is that it makes clear that the Supreme Court has precedence because they want to give us 10 years to implement that change versus the Bar Association, which wants to give us a little less than 3 years to implement that change. So we're hoping that that goes through. One other just interesting note to report, there was also a bill that came through that has to do with e-bikes and e-motorcycles, clarifying whether or not those should be considered motorcycles or e-bikes. I know we've all seen a lot of those heading around in town here, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But all in all, it was a very useful trip, and not 1 cent for my trip down there was spent by the city of Anacortes. It was because I'm a board member for AWC, so that was, you're welcome.
We appreciate that. And just as an additional note, I think that the stars really may be aligning toward not paving South Commercial Avenue this year. Just had a funding conversation about that earlier today, given some of the trade-offs. We'll have to talk about that more later, but don't count on it happening, I guess, at this point. Any other announcements?
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
I actually attended my first Housing Task Force meeting today, and it was great with a lot of stakeholders from the county and other cities throughout. But the one point I want to just make is that there is going to be another housing symposium that all of us will be invited to. We had a number of planning commissioners who attended, and potential people running for various positions. So that is going to be May 21st. So just want to put that out on everyone's calendar. It's open to the public also, and it's really an opportunity. Last year they had a keynote speaker, book associated with it, which was pretty interesting, and then they had a lot of breakout sessions to talk about housing, the continuum of care, homelessness, and all of that, and how how North Star as an overarching entity is trying to coordinate everything for Skagit County. So if anyone's interested, please let us know. I think we all attended it this last year, and they're still working on a keynote speaker and finalizing kind of what our goals are. So if any of you all have feedback of what you would like to hear more of, please don't hesitate to share with me. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other announcements? No? All right. One final note then. This relates to the concern and outrage we've seen surrounding the events this past weekend and a past few weeks in Minneapolis related to immigration and customs enforcement. We have not seen any such enforcement action here in Anacortes, but we certainly recognize the concern that many of our residents have about these issues. The relevant law in Washington State is notably encapsulated in the Keep Washington Working Act, and it basically provides the local police departments are not to do the federal government's immigration work for them. Unauthorized presence in the U.S. by itself is a civil violation and not a crime, and our police department does not enforce federal law, nor do we collect irrelevant information about a person's immigration or citizenship status or place of birth. We do not detain people upon request without a warrant. The first duty of all of us as elected officials, and then all of us as government officials, unelected or elected, our first duty is to the truth and the rule of law. Even at this level of government, it's important to note that it is the very foundation of our nation and our society. And so this government will always follow the law, local, state, and federal, and you should expect nothing less from us and any of your representatives. Thank you. And now we can talk about public comment. We have no one signed up. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make any public comment? And do we have anybody online? No. All right. We will move ahead then to the consent agenda consisting of the minutes and approval of claims. Council.
Mayor Walters. I move approval of consent agenda items A and B.
Mayor Walters, second.
Second. There is motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is approved. That brings us to item 6A, the 2025 year-end finance update. Finance Director, Mr. Steve Hoagland, will present this. Mr. Hoagland, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the audience. Hopefully, sorry for the little bout of vertigo here as I get back to the top of the charts. So hopefully this slide deck looks familiar. It's typically what I bring to council for the quarterly updates. So, and I apologize for the timing. I was sick for a couple of weeks. I ideally would have had this to council a week or two ago, but and this shows our financial activity through the end of the year. So we have not finished all the year-end activity, but this captures all of our December and interfund loan payments, interfund transfers. So it's mostly complete here at this point. This chart looks at our primary revenue stream, or I'm sorry, our primary tax revenue streams. The largest of which is property tax, and this column right here just shows what the budget is, the actual amount of the revenues, and then the percentage collected. And you can see down the rows here, all of our collections are around 100% or more, with the exception of real estate excise tax and lodging tax. And we'll talk more about both of those revenue streams in a little bit, but the short of that is the budgeted amount here not only includes the projected revenues for 2025, but any resources we were planning on using out of cash reserves goes into that budgeted amount as well. So that's why the budgeted amount was so much higher than what the actual is. We're generally pretty good at projecting what those revenue streams are going to be throughout the year. So dropping down to sales tax, this shows in the columns the monthly budget actuals. The orange color is the actual, the green color is the budget, so month to month, what we're expecting to collect and what we actually collected, and then the blue and red lines here is the cumulative budget to actuals. And you can see pretty much most of the months we collected more than what we were projecting to collect those months. And our projections, when we're setting our revenue projections for the year, we generally use a pretty conservative approach. We would rather under budget and collect more than what we are anticipating rather than the other way around, relying on too much revenue that we didn't actually collect. So we ended up collecting about 6% more than what we budgeted. There's a lot of material in these rows here, but that's the kind of the short of it. We budgeted $5.5 million for this revenue stream, collected $5.9. I like this view of sales tax better. I know it's a little bit it's a little bit busy, but the information here, the month-to-month comparison from year to year, I find really useful. So the purple line, the purple row down here shows just the full year's collection, and then the percentage is how that changed compared to the prior year. So for 2025, you can see we were up 3.3% compared to the 2024 total, and that total was 3.2% less than 23, which was 1.9% less than 22. So you can see in 2022 is really the peak of our sales tax, and then we've had 3 consecutive years of pretty flat sales tax since then. And when we put our budget together for 26, based on what the economic indicators we were seeing, we were projecting another pretty flat year in sales tax. Looking at utility tax, there are 2 different utility tax revenue streams. This is looking at the private utilities, which is the sale of electricity, natural gas, cable TV, and telephone service. And it's the same type of chart. It shows the budget actual in the columns, and then the line charts are the cumulative totals. And you can see the actual collection is significantly higher than what we had budgeted, about 15% higher. And dropping down to this month-to-month review, looking at the change year over year, about 11% higher than what we collected last year, and last year was just about exactly what we collected the year before. There were significant changes in the cost of electricity and natural gas in 2025. Those flowed through to consumer bills, which increased the amount of the bill, which increased the amount of utility tax. We don't expect to see that again in 2026, but expecting that to be kind of a one-time bump in 25, and then probably consistent revenues in 26 in this revenue stream. Public utility tax, the utility tax assessed against the city utilities, water, sewer, storm, solid waste. Drop down to this comparative view again. So we're about 3.3% above what we collected last year, which is 8.3% above what we collected the year before. So we do have, generally our utilities have inflators built into those user fees, so we generally see increases in those. So we, in turn, see those utility taxes increase from year to year, generally speaking. Real estate excise tax. This is a significant revenue stream for us in what we use REIT for a lot of our, primarily for public works projects. Again, the same kind of look at that revenue stream year over year. We've been pretty consistent in our collection of real estate excise tax. It's pretty interesting because the real estate market has slowed. There have not been as many houses turning over, but the cost per house has been increasing, so our overall revenue stream has been pretty consistent. You can see going all the way back to 2020, we're right around 1.5, 1.4 every year. We were at 1.36 this year, which is 2.7% above what we collected last year. This REIT collection per transaction, I was just kind of referring to the number of home sales. So the real estate excise tax is assessed on a home when it's sold on the real estate market. We collected 1.368, as we just talked about. So the number of homes that we saw sold in the city over the year was 335. So it works out to about $4,084 per home sale that the city collected in real estate excise tax. And you can see compared to the prior year, that's up from 3,841. This is looking at building permits. The orange line here is the number of permits, and the blue bars is the permit revenue that we've collected. And then this blue line is representation of the building permit revenue that's been collected over the year, not in, but that's in a linear line format. The number of permits that I have listed here, what I was trying to capture were the big ticket items that generate retail sales tax. So looking at single-family residence permits, commercial and multifamily, and then cottages, ADUs, and manufactured homes. So that's what this comparative chart is, these comparative numbers, 35 in 2025 compared to 38 last year and 28 the year before, so up slightly compared to 28, but you can see a significant drop in the years prior to that, starting in 22. But the permit revenue really tells the story here. We collected $266,950 in 2025, going back to the peak in 2021 of $762,000.
And council, notably, the permit revenue is not itself a revenue stream we can spend on anything other than the cost of processing permits.
Okay, looking at lodging tax. Again, a very consistent revenue stream for us the last several years. We collected $575,799 this year, which was almost exactly what we collected last year, down slightly from 2023, which 2023 was up compared to 2022. So those that hospitality sector continuing to produce for the city, as evidence here in the lodging tax. This is my favorite chart. I'm surprised to find out it's not everybody's favorite chart, but there's a lot of information here I know it's hard to look at, and I apologize for that. I've talked with our Finance Committee this morning, the mayor today, and Finance Manager, and I'll agree that we will be looking to revamp this in the coming year. But looking at this, I have this heavy line separating out these two sides of the chart. So on the left side, what this is illustrating is the budgeted revenue and expenditures by fund. So to begin with the general fund, fund number 001 is the general fund. And this first row here of revenue, this first column is the budget, and then the second column is actual. So we have budgeted revenues of 35.7, actual revenues of 31.4, and then the second line, budgeted expenditures versus actual. So you can see, looking at this column right here, the actuals, we collected $31.4 million in revenue in the general fund in 2025 against $32.8 million in expenditures, leaving expenditures over revenues at $1.4 million for the year. I wanted to bounce over here to the right side here. This is where I'm trying to give a picture of what our cash looks like, and maybe you can make notes on your chart or something, but I don't have this very clearly delineated on the chart here. But this column with these blue font right here, this first column of cash is our year-end 2025 ending cash. So 12/31/25, our ending operating cash in the general fund was $2.8 million. I made this in different font because I wanted to point out, of that $2.8 million, we budgeted to use $1.4 million in the 2026 budget to balance out the revenue budget against expenditure budget. So in other words, in 2026, the way the budget sits right now, we're projecting our general fund expenditures to exceed general fund revenues by $1.4 million, and we're making up that difference out of these cash reserves. And that's just part of the story. I'll talk more about this, I promise. So I want to go through revenues and expenditures real quick, then I'll come back to cash, and I'll spend as much time as you need to make sure that you understand what we're looking at. Parks and Rec, almost even looking at revenues and expenditures, just $71,000. off the mark, 21,000 for the cemetery, library 32,000. So these are our primary operating funds: general fund, parks, cemetery, library, that rely on property tax. So all of these being just slightly expenditures, slightly over revenues in light of the last few years that we've had of really flat revenues. I think this is actually a good news story. Street maintenance, just about exactly even. Street construction, this is primarily funded with grants, but $3 million in $3 million in revenue, $3.3 million in expenditures. Washington Park, I'll point out a couple of these, including Washington Park, are going to be on the budget amendment that you'll see here after we get done with this. We initially anticipated revenues and expenditures at $295,000 for Washington Park. Much higher activity in both of those, $383,000 in revenues, $354,000 in expenditures, banking $29,000 into cash reserves, and this will be on the budget amendment you'll see after this. Parks Capital, a little bit of activity, but generated some money that will be banked into cash reserves. Affordable housing, this is strictly pass-through money. The negative you see of higher expenditures and revenues, and then an ending cash balance, those are strictly due to accruals and the timing for when the revenue comes in from the state. We send the money onto the Housing Authority and the Family Center. So that's fully anticipated and just due to accruals. Impact fee activity very low this year, generating $64,000 in revenues. The $38,000 that was spent was in the fire department. That was towards the Station 1 remodel. ACFL fund revenues were a bit higher due to a large donation that was made into that fund this year. Lodging tax we talked about, it was almost exactly even, revenues and expenditures. REIT we talked about, almost even as well. We did budget to spend more money out of the REIT fund than we were bringing in. We actually spent less overall, but still spent $1.5 million out of REIT in this year. A lot going on here with the utilities. Large amount of money being banked into cash reserves in the water fund. This is due to the way we pre-collect money from our customers for future projects, generally or particularly in the regional system. Also, when we have money, I think we have a project coming up in the refinery system, so we pre-collect money from our customers for those projects, and then once we get to that point, then you'll see those numbers turn around, and we'll spend that on those projects. Sewer fund expended 5.8 more than we brought in. That was outfall project. Storm was just about even, sanitation just about even, and equipment rental. Equipment rental is another one you'll see on the budget amendment. There were several pieces of equipment that were ordered in 2024. Long lead times, they came in 25, made those payments, but the budget authority didn't travel with those expenditures, so we'll ask for that in the budget amendment tonight. Okay, I'm gonna hop back up top of this, talk about cash for a minute. This is so this $5.3 million that I've got here listed, that's the rainy day fund that's part of the general fund cash. So this operating cash that we have, that's like your kind of your general checking account that you have at home that you just pay your electric bill, you buy your groceries, things of that nature. Those general revenues go into that operating cash line, and general expenditures go into that same cash line. It's just that's where our cash flow takes place. The rainy day fund is that money that we have set aside. Council may remember I asked for, I think it was by resolution, we suspended the adjustment of that rainy day fund for 2026 because of our tenuous cash position. What I really wanted to talk about was this cash position in Fund 105. You see, we ended the year with $718,000 in cash, and okay, so from here on, this cash illustration is different than what I have up here for the general fund. So what this represents is the amount of money that we budgeted out of cash reserves to balance the operating budget for 2026. If that makes sense. So, for example, the cemetery fund ended the year with $209,000 in cash. We budgeted $94,000 in cash reserves for that fund. So, if everything comes in exactly on budget, we would end the year with something like $105,000 in cash in the cemetery fund, because we're budgeting to spend $94,000 out of cash reserves. So does that make sense? Those two columns. This first column, this is year-end cash in the bank for that fund, $731,000. This is the amount of cash we're anticipating, or that we budgeted to spend out of cash reserves to balance that fund's operating budget. Okay? What I really wanted to talk about was the parks fund up here. So there was a lot of moving parts during this budget process, as I know all of you are aware, and it goes on for a number of months. So as we were going through that process, we looked at a variety of things that we could do to try and reduce the impact for each of these funds. And one of the things that the parks has available to it, there's a variety of funds that different personnel work out of when they're working in parks. So there's Parks, Cemetery, Fund 107, Washington Park, the ACFL fund. So all of those funds have the same employees that are working out of those. So we took another look at that staffing to see if it made sense to leave the staffing levels, the allocation, the way they were. So we may have staff that are allocated 25% out of the 101 fund, 25% out of the cemetery fund, 50% out of the Washington Park fund. So we took another look at that and made allocation changes to those staff, and that's what changed the amount of expenditure, staffing expenditure that we have budgeted for 101 and respread to some of our other funds. What we did not do is reallocate the property tax spread to reflect that same change. So what I'm going to be doing now, what I'm working on now, is a first quarter budget amendment for 2026 that I'll be bringing back to council in a few months, and that'll reflect that change. Because just intuitively looking at this, you recognize it doesn't make sense that Parks Fund has $700,000 and planning to bank another $291,000 into cash reserves when you look down the list and you can see other funds such as Washington Park planning on taking $152,000 out of cash reserves, ACFL Fund $271,000 out of cash reserves, and the biggest one actually $1.4 million out of cash reserves for the general fund. So what I'll be looking at is respreading that property tax and shifting more of that property tax allocation to the general fund where it needs additional resources, and the parks can rely on the cash reserve that it has built up to get through this current year. So I wanted to pause there for a second. Happy to go through that again, or if you have questions about that. Okay, so dropping down through these different operating funds, that's parks. We talked about cemetery, libraries in a similar situation. They finished the year with a generally healthy cash balance, $731, relying on $33,000 in cash reserves for the year. Street maintenance has a balance of $919,000 and planning on banking another $169,000 into that fund. So the difference with street maintenance, we're not giving it any additional resources that we normally would in a regular year when we had a pavement program going on. Those resources are being allocated either back to the general fund or into the street construction fund for the 12th and Commercial project and South Commercial paving. So there's dedicated revenue streams that go into that fund. The TBD is the biggest one. There's a utility tax, motor vehicle fuel tax. So all we have budgeted in Fund 104 street maintenance right now is just the typical stuff they do crack sealing, painting, mowing, things of that nature. And that's lining up to bank an additional $169,000 into cash reserves, which is great for this fund. In the future, at some point, we'll want to restart that pavement program, and we'll need that cash reserves to balance that out. Street construction fund, this right now has as of 12/31/25, has a negative cash balance of $509,000. We have several projects in that fund that were grant-driven, and we had grant draws that were from work that was done in December. So we made the expenditures in December. We submitted the grant drawdowns, but that cash didn't hit our bank until January. So what we effectively have is a deposit in transit. So when you add all of that together, we have a healthy cash reserve in the street construction fund. When we do the annual report, we'll put note disclosure in about what happened. It still has positive fund balance. Revenues exceeded expenditures. It's just negative cash, which is explainable. It's that's all allowable under GAAP reporting. So I wanted to point that out because it looks unusual, but it's not unusual and it's not illegal. Washington Park, we talked about a little bit already. Parks Capital, $38,000 in cash, hoping to bank another $8,000. The affordable housing we talked about as well. That's that flow-through revenue stream. The ACFO Management Fund currently has $593,000 in cash, $271,000 budgeted for use in the 2026 budget. Lodging tax, we've talked about lodging tax quite a bit. There's $1.7 million there. I think everybody is familiar with that revenue stream and that cash being used towards the development of the event center, about $3.3 million in REIT. The utilities are all quite healthy. These last three lines here, operating, rainy day, and capital, those are the three cash lines in the water fund. Same with the sewer fund, storm drain, sanitation, and then ER&R. Those are all very healthy. In equipment rental, I wanted to point out $2.8 million IF is for interfund loan. So interfund loan receivable of $2.8 million. So that's money that is owed through that interfund loan process from the general fund. And as we move forward on a yearly basis, the general fund will make payments back to the ER&R fund for that interfund loan. So that's the last slide I have, and I know that's a lot, and I'm happy to answer questions that council or others may have.
Mayor Walters.
Mr. McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Hoglund, for the report. Would you mind scrolling back up to the first page, basically the fund balances? Yeah, so kind of to net out, or tell me if my summary is correct. Basically, and I really like the sort of like checking account analogy, the property tax, sales tax, those revenue streams, kind of the main revenue streams, they all flow into, well, the general fund is the main checking account, but actually portions of those revenue streams, they all kind of like partially flow into all these other like smaller checking accounts, essentially. And I'm good so far.
Yeah, no, okay. Particularly property tax. Property tax, that's our largest tax revenue stream, about $8.5 million. Mm-hmm. And property tax supports not only the general fund, but that's the primary revenue stream for parks, cemetery, library as well. And under normal years where we have more activity in the street maintenance fund, we generally have an allocation of property tax that goes into...
goes there as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned basically you're looking to, or with these numbers and the fact that Parks actually has that well, I guess 291,000 in the positive, based upon my understanding of this, you're looking to shift some of the property tax revenue that would have gone into like the several parks or other funds, shift those into general, because you're able to backfill that funding with this essentially additional revenue or, this kind of savings that is in the Parks and Recreation.
Yeah,
Correct?
that's exactly right. And council, I know, remembers going through this budget process last year. It was an awful budget. It was the worst budget I had ever worked on. And looking at the available cash that would be left in the general fund at 1.3 million, if everything comes in exactly on budget, revenues and expenditures in the general fund, to end the year in the general fund with 1.3 million, that's a really thin edge. And that's why after going through and doing some additional analysis on this, I'd be much more comfortable reallocating some of that property tax back into the general fund. The Parks Fund it's got a healthy balance here and can take it for a year. That's what we've done to some of these other funds you can see in cemetery, less extent to library, but we'll do an analysis. Now that we have our final numbers, looking at the revenue projections, we start that like in July and August, so now that we know what we're actually dealing with, it'll be easier to do legitimate analysis and then respread those property tax revenues.
Great, thank you. So roughly speaking, that 1.35, which, thin edge as far as cash flow for general fund, that maybe bumps up by 150, 200K, something like that?
Yeah, probably more, yeah.
Probably even more, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
At the same time, we will have to make sure that staff are actually billed to the right fund. And so that is complicated somewhat by the sheer number of funds that staff are distributed against. Council, any other questions or comments? No? All right.
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Cleland-McGrath.
Thank you. So I was one of the people on that committee meeting this morning. So I think Ms. Moulton and I had a number of questions, but I think just the points that I want to reinforce to the other council members and the public is the fact that that 1.3 available cash is really how we're paying salaries. Is that correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
so it's not that that's sitting there. That is money we still have to use until our next chunk of property tax comes in. This is our lowest point in January and February. So I think it's important to be aware of that. The second is the rearranging of the parks when it comes to cemetery, library, Washington Park, ACFL. I think that is a really strategic move that I appreciate the Parks Department being creative and nimble on, but that is not something that we can continue to do year after year. We will run out of those reserve funds. So this is kind of a one-time thing. We need to be aware that this is not something that will be available to us for 2027 or 2028. The other point is, the 1.8 million that we talk about street maintenance and paving and things like that, we've cut that budget significantly. We're going to continue to do the basic striping of lines and cleaning and things like that, but it has also been pared back significantly for our 2026 budget. So we need to, that is one thing that we have to be aware of that needs to be built back up, or hopefully we have a plan to. And the final thing is our ER&R fund. We decided not to fund that except for the utilities, which is separate. So our general ER&R is not being funded for 2026. So I just think that it's important that we continue to say that we are not, we've got some really tough decisions to make for the next 6 months, a year, that we need to be having these conversations right now so that when we're moving forward to budgeting, we're aware of some of these real cuts we've made so far.
Thank you, Ms. Cleland-McGrath. And that is our job, I think. Well, one of our jobs is to make sure that we don't forget about the things that we are not funding, because those will add up. Deferred maintenance is expensive. Any other questions on this? No? All right, so then at this point, I also want to invite our HR director up to the podium. because we've got a slide about some position changes before we do the year-end budget amendment. So, as council knows, we're asking for a head nod on 3 position changes. These changes don't require a budget amendment, and traditionally would not be brought to council even for review, but for full transparency and because you have to eventually live with the impact of these changes, we're going to present them to you now. And so HR Director Moyle will summarize, and then if there's no objection, we'll proceed with the changes, and we'll bring them to you as part of the first quarter 2026 budget amendment. So, Ms. Moyle, why don't you take it away?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the audience. To better align staffing with operational needs and responsible use of resources, we are proposing 3 position changes for 2026. Additional details have been sent to you in advance, but as a summary, we are requesting to replace the Administrative Services Director position with a 1.0 fiber manager, resulting in overall general fund savings of $55,508. Restore the Fire Administrative Assistant to full-time status, funded with grants and internal reallocations with no general fund impact in 2026. This includes one-time revenue sources not guaranteed in the 2027 budget. And lastly, create a new HR assistant position to build internal capacity and replace the AWC retro program contract with a net general fund cost of $13,114, which we are expected to offset within the Human Resources existing budget. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mayor Walters.
Mr. Fantini.
I'm very supportive of all 3 of these, so head nod from me. I just have a question. The one-time revenue source for the fire admin assistant to go from 0.5 back to 1, how did that happen? Like, where did that come from?
I'm going to let Chief Harris speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the one-time sources, there's 2 grants out there. One was a BH Core grant through the University of Washington, which is going to fund part of about $21,000 of the community paramedic salary, so that'll switch over to the admin assistant. There's another $19,000 grant that we're expecting here in the next couple of weeks, and then also we're looking to reduce the volunteer budget, and in early spring we'll be eliminating the volunteer program as well.
Great. Thank you.
So part of that is ongoing, but those grants, and the problem with grants generally is that they're one-time revenue sources, so we can't really rely on them on an ongoing basis. So that has also been clearly communicated to that employee. So if there is no objection at this point, we are on a timeline on these, and so we'll proceed with those, and then we'll bring them to you for ratification as part of the first quarter budget amendment. All right, hearing none. Mr. Hoagland, would you like to brief us next on Ordinance 5016, which is the 2025 year-end budget amendment?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, so we talked about a couple of these as as we were working through the finance update. And I apologize, I don't have any names here. So 101 is the Parks Fund. So we had utility budget issues across the board this year. So for this fund, I was concerned when I was putting it together. It was getting close to being over exceeding budget authority in total. So I wanted to make sure that there was some buffer there so that there wouldn't be any issues with the fund being in budget. So, but there's plenty of fund balance to cover an additional $40,000 in resources for the utilities. Fund 107 is Washington Park, and as you saw in the finance update, there was much more activity in that park, particularly not just on the expenditure side, but on the revenue side as well. We brought in more revenue than we were expecting, as well as associated expenditures in that fund. Fund 102 is the cemetery fund. $24,000 in professional services. There was a dangerous tree that needed to be removed that was pretty costly, and then again, significantly higher utilities during the year. Fund 113 is the ACFL fund, Anacortes Community Forest Lands funds. We had additional staffing and professional services in that fund. So I'm requesting a total of $14,000 in budget amendment for that fund as well. And then 501 is ER&R, the equipment rental fund. I talked about that as well. We had several pieces of equipment that were delayed and came in a year later. We have the money for it in replacement reserves. We just didn't have the budget authority. This is effectively a carryover budget amendment for those items. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Fantini?
Mayor Walters, I don't have any questions because I think you did a very good job explaining the budget amendment previously, and thank you to yourself, the mayor, Ms. Peck, and your team for all the work going into this. I move to approve Ordinance 5016, amending the 2025 budget.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve Ordinance 5016, amending the 2025 budget. We will correct the spelling of Anacortes before we execute this amendment. No, it's down further. You don't have to scroll. But we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. But I do want to point out that by Q1, which is a couple months away, when we do that budget amendment, we will bring some revised versions of some of these documents in format and structure. So if you have suggestions for what you would like to see in terms of the budget review and also the budget amendment format, anything having to do with the budget, feel free to let us know. I think I'll attend maybe the next Finance Committee meeting if I can, so that we can have some interactive conversation about what those documents look like and how they are best used by council or best explain the budget situation. We'll also include a discrete list of steps we are taking to improve the budget situation when we get to that Q1 budget amendment. Is there any discussion on this proposed ordinance? Hearing none, Mr. Franciac, would you take a roll call vote?
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Courier.
Yes.
Mayor, the ayes are 5, the noes are 0.
Sounds like the ayes have it, and the ordinance is approved. Thank you. Our next item is a contract award for Verizon, and Ms. Xu will present her last item to us.
Mayor, council members, the audience, I just wanted to say thank you for the acknowledgement. It's been a real pleasure and honor to be a part of the City of Anacortes team. So just want to say thank you for that. Tonight I'm here to speak about the Verizon Frontline transition that we are recommending. The recommendation is that we transition our cell phone provider and transition to Verizon Frontline, which is part of the Washington State contract and NASPO contract. The services that we will be receiving are equivalent to our current provider, but with lower monthly costs. And today we're asking to approve the purchase order, which is the contract. I won't read that to you. So just to tell you a little bit more about Verizon Frontline, it's a specialized advanced network and technology that is specifically for first responders and public safety agencies. All of the city's lines will be on this front line, and it is specifically gives us priority and preemption in the event of an emergency, that we would have first priority in terms of having the telephone lines move through, and for those calls to come in. So it automatically reallocates the network resources during times of congestion, with us having that priority. In the event of an emergency, Verizon will come in and place backup generators, HVAC systems, and fiber rings at cell sites and switching centers to keep the network running. They have provided some examples of when they did that in Hawaii during the Lahaina fires, just as one example, because we said we're an island, how would you respond to that when you can't get to us? And that was I thought, a very helpful example that they shared. They also have frontline crisis response teams that are able to provide deployments for additional services that may be needed in the event of an emergency. Where the real good news for the city of Anacortes, especially given our budget this year, is that in transitioning to Verizon Frontline, they are offering credit and rebates that equate to approximately $90,000 in savings in 2026. Then there are ongoing savings. The services will be about $24,000 less annually than our current provider. So the projected monthly expense will be $8,500 plus taxes and fees. The reason it is approximate is that the number of cell phones that we have go up and down, and the rebate is based on how much the resale value is. And so we send it to work with a third-party provider that they work with, and sometimes they say, well, this phone is worth $250 and this phone is worth $400. So that's why we're using the word approximate. But it's definitely a benefit this year to our budget because our phone expenses are a large one. The implementation plan is that the IT team would work with Verizon staff to transition all of the cell phones. The staff will be able to maintain their current phone numbers, and if approved by council, that this would occur between February 17th and 20th of next month. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council?
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Molden?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shu. So could you go back 2 slides, I think? That one, yes, thank you. So if our ongoing annual cost will be $24,000 less, that means about $2,000 a month. If our monthly expenses will be $8,500 plus taxes and fees, we're saving roughly $2,000 a month, or almost 20% per month.
Ongoing. So
Ongoing,
after we receive the credit and rebates of $90,000, and this is a 2-year contract in 2027, then our ongoing annual costs will still be $24,000 less than they were in 2025.
Right, so I just wanted to point out, just kind of underline the significance of that, because every month on the claim sheets, when we see that it's about $10,000 a month for city cell phones, this is a marked difference. So thank you. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Molden?
I move that City Council authorize the mayor to sign contract 26036 ITS 002 with Verizon Wireless for wireless voice, text, and data service plans, along with ancillary equipment and services.
Second.
Motion on the table is to approve the contract award to Verizon Frontline. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The contract award is approved. Thank you, Ms. Shu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I was really hoping you weren't going to prank Ms. Shu on her last day by... All right, our next item is about fees for Grandview Cemetery. We've asked all departments to look at the fees that we assess, make sure that we are approaching 100% cost recovery on those. This work was already in progress, and Mr. Lunsford from the Parks Department will brief us on their proposal.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I brought Ms. Darby Jordan from our staff. She's the brains behind the research and the program. So she's helped put this all together. If you have questions, you want to go a little deeper, she's right here behind me to help me and you understand the problem. So at Grandview Cemetery, some people might not know that is part of the Parks and Recreation Department. The city-owned cemetery at Grandview has been since 1946. And we charge fees for services there. A couple years ago, we upped the rate of a sale of a plot considerably because we had not done that for a good amount of time. We've kept some of these fees low during the period of COVID, and then with increased costs due to inflation and wages, we've also kept them low, but we can't do that any longer because the actual costs, as you'll see, are much higher than the service fees that we are charging. So let's just get into it. This is just a discussion tonight, so just to enlighten you and the community. If you have any questions at any time, ask me, and then I'll ask for help from Ms. Jordan. Okay, so at the cemetery, say if you want a full casket burial, line 1, you can see the current fee that we charge is $553. Our actual cost and labor equipment is $1,725 to perform that service. So that has increased over time to get to that point over the past 6 or 7 years. So the comparables, as you can see, Ms. Jordan collected those from other city-owned cemeteries in our region. So those are Arlington, Bellingham, Edmonds, Kirkland, and Cedar-Woolley. So those costs range from $1,000 to $4,050 for a burial. As you go down the list, you can see an urn or cremated remains interment is $257 is what we charge. Our actual costs are $680, and on down the line. So that's kind of giving you a sense of how far we have fallen behind in what we charge and what it costs. It's just in labor and equipment. That is the cost. Employees' hours and, say, a backhoe or something to do the work if needed. Staff costs currently overtime. You can see, if we have an overtime service on a Saturday, we have to charge it. Our current fee that we charge is $515, but the actual cost in overtime, cost of compensation is $836. Same with an urn. So we are trying to just come back to even is all our goal is. Disinterment services are not as common, but they still happen at the cemetery. That's where we're either removing a casket or an urn to go outside of the cemetery or to be replaced in a different section of the cemetery. And so you can see those listed here in our current costs and to the actuals, and the comparisons that other cemeteries charge on the right. Marker fees, these are the headstones, or some people call them tombstones, on the lawn, and what it costs us, what we charge to pull them, add another name or make repairs if the old concrete collar has cracked, or the family would like something new if they've, have an older headstone that they'd like to update and, add some new features to. So you can see our costs are quite low there as well. We have, as I mentioned, brought things to you in the past for Unified Fee Edition. We would do this too with these fees, but first we would like to talk to you about raising those fees to cover our costs and to see what your pleasure is. Again, we're not looking for action tonight. This is just a discussion. We want you to be able to consider it and understand that we've not come to these lightly. We've tried to suppress them for a long time because we know it's a cost, but it is hopefully, when I die, it would just be a one-time cost for my family. I don't expect to have them do that once. So it's a different cost than other costs we use for our different leagues and such like that are more reoccurring. It's a one-time fee. Columbariums are coming to the cemetery. We have them on order. Those are above-ground niches that you would see. So we have a mausoleum. It's inside. It's a building. These would be outside niches for cremated remains, and those are coming to us in March. We're working with Ms. Swetnam's office to create language for that, and we would bring that to you when we have that set up for that in the code, but we don't have that yet. But we're happy to answer questions about that. We can bring that for another discussion. And just by the numbers, Ms. Jordan put this together. There's over 8,200 souls at the cemetery with 5,000 plus headstones and about 18.7 acres, and it takes us 2.5 days to mow it if we're lucky and the weather cooperates. So if there are any questions, myself or Ms. Jordan are here to answer them, or if you want more time to reflect, that's great. If you want me to go back in any of these, I do have another spreadsheet that I gave to you in your packet, kind of lays it out in Excel format, but this is essentially those numbers are here in the PowerPoint.
And Mr. Lunsford, this is basically the marginal cost of providing these services, doesn't include any of the cost of mowing and all the upkeep of the cemetery.
That is correct. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so that would be like in the endowment care. So once you are placed there, you pay a one-time fee for endowment care, and then we just mow and weed eat and trim and garden around the grave of your loved ones, correct? And that's not an additional fee other than the one-time endowment fee. Am I right? Thank you.
Council, any questions?
Mayor Walters.
Mr. Fantini?
Just a quick one. So I'm very unfamiliar, having hopefully not being ready to die soon, how the cemetery process works. And I guess my question is, what are there people right now that like have agreements to be buried there that have already paid for them? Would those people be affected at all if we do have that? Okay.
We call that pre-need, and we don't have anybody pre-need right now, if you couldn't hear Ms. Jordan.
I could. Thank you.
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Moulton?
Yeah, this sounds reasonable to me. It is quite a discrepancy between what the cost is and what we're receiving for the services. And I would give a head nod for it. And I also want to thank Ms. Jordan, because sometimes we have consultants that do this work for us, and I know sometimes they're more longer kinds of spreadsheets and everything, but I think it's really great that you did this in-house and were able to gather all that information for us. So thank you for that.
Mr. Walters?
Mr. Greer?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. I really appreciate the energy and the work that went into this, and I do think that we should be able to recover our costs at a minimum as a city and still provide great services and value for the citizens. Thank you.
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Cleland McGrath?
Thank you. So I guess my next question is, how long will this amount be appropriate? Are we going to need to adjust it for increase?
So our goal, and Mr. Hoagland can correct me if I'm wrong, or Ms. Peck if she's still here, would be we would make this update through a resolution, I'm assuming, that we would do that in a future council meeting, maybe next week or the week after, take some time to prepare it with Ms. Swetnam's office and Mr. Hoagland's office. And then we would bring it to you, and then we would put this on the unified fee.
Perfect. That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this large adjustment we talked about bringing this back to you in December when we were discussing unified fee, but this is a longer discussion, so that wasn't fair to you or the process to do that then. So we delayed until the new year, which is now.
So remaining questions here. These would be adopted as part of the unified fee schedule, but then would they also be incremented by CPI? Do you have a proposal with respect to that question?
I will after I talk to Mr. Hoagland.
Well, I mean, inflation happens every year.
Yeah, I mean, that would be our thing, is we would go to unified fee, and as it increases, these would increase.
Okay.
Correct.
And then do you propose that they be adopted immediately and enacted immediately, or?
That would be our proposal when we come to you in the next couple of weeks with the adjustments.
Okay. Does that sound like the proposal they should bring? Okay. All right. Then great. Thank you, Mr. Lunsford. It sounds like you've got your marching orders.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Ms. Jordan. Thanks for all your work, and see you next time.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Oh, wait. This item has an asterisk. Would anyone like to offer public comment on the cemetery fee schedule? No. Okay, thank you. All right, oh, yes, sorry, I missed. Come on up, Ms. Baker, to the podium.
I have one quick question, and that's Teresa Baker, Anacortes. And that is, what about the proposal that was put? What about the proposal about composted burials?
Composted burials, okay. Let me pose that question to Mr. Lunsford. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, so we are working on green burials, and that is part of the update to the code that we're working on with Ms. Swetnam's office. So when we come back with adding the columbariums and items like green burial, that would be in the new updates to the code that we're working on. So we're a few months out on that probably, so within late quarter one, quarter two, we'll bring those back.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment on this item? And I apologize for missing the opportunity for public comment on the finance update. We'll do better. Okay, so thank you all. That concludes this meeting. We'll see you all next week.